Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to open the Audit Committee at 2 o'clock. Under Clause 3 of Schedule 2.3 of the Local Government Act, I will preside at the meeting until the office of the presiding member is filled. Members of the public are advised that recommendations to Council contained within this agenda can be subject to change. Applicants and other interested parties should refrain from taking any action until written advice is received confirming Council's decision with respect to any particular issue. The Shire of Harvey acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and their cultures, and to elders both past, present and emerging. So we'll move on to the election of presiding member and deputy presiding member. And as this is the first meeting of the Audit Committee following the 2023 local government elections, it's necessary to elect a presiding member and deputy presiding member in accordance with section 5.12 of the Local Government Act 1995. So I will call for nominations for presiding member of the Audit Committee. Councillor Bromman.
Yeah, I nominate Michelle Campbell.
Thank you. Do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
Do I have any other nominations?
Oh, no, sorry, I was going to do something, but I'm out of line. I was going to second it, that's all.
That's good practice, though.
Yes. So do I have any other nominations? If I don't, then if there are no objections, then do we need to move and second this? No. I now appoint you presiding member of the Audit Committee if you'd like to conduct the deputy presiding election. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. So we are now up to, and welcome everybody, we're now up to the deputy presiding member. So I'll call for any nominations for the position of deputy presiding member of the Audit Committee. Do I have any nominations? Deputy. Councillor Bromman, you're
I'll
nominated.
nominate if no one else is named.
Okay. No other nominations?
Does it go to a vote, does it?
No. There's only the one nomination. Congratulations, Councillor Bromman, Deputy Chair.
Thank you.
Alrighty. So, moving on. Record of apologies and leave of absence. I believe there's none. We're all here. Thank you. Declarations of members and officers' personal interest. Do we have any declarations, councillors? No? Thank you. Confirmation of minutes of the Audit Committee meeting held Tuesday the 18th of July 2023. We've got an officer's recommendation that the minutes of the Audit Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 18th of July 2023 as attached be confirmed as a true and accurate record. Do I have a mover for that?
I wasn't here. What's that says?
Councillor Crispin, do I have a seconder?
I was there, but I'm a deputy, so.
No. No. Oh, maybe me. Oh, show of hands, all those in favour. Carried, thank you very much. I forget. All right, we'll move into the officers' reports. 9.1, which is the Audit Regulation 17 Quarterly Report, Quarter 1 2023 to 2024. Courtney, are you dealing with that one? I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, and through the chair, this report just brings the administration's progress against the actions of the Audit Regulation 17 report. Mostly self-explanatory. Each action has a manager's comment after the recommendations. So there was nothing other than to note this report. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Courtney. Are there any questions from councillors in regards to this item? I did have one. It says in here, I'm pretty sure I read it here, in regards to the number of shire buildings. There are a number of shire buildings that we don't have leases over. There's some sort of other arrangement. So how many of those, and are we moving towards leases for those, or?
Sure, and through the chair. So we have 56 community leases at the Shire of Harvey, and about as many buildings that have a tenant in them without a formal arrangement in place. And when I say formal arrangement, I mean a lease or a licence. Some of the premises have old management agreements, MOUs, an email chain from 1935 as an example. So what we've done is pick one at a time, basically, and go through the process of getting a formal arrangement in place for that tenant. It's a really long process. Quite often we find there are regulatory hurdles that we have to cross when we pick up one of these arrangements, maybe because the building sits on another piece of land that doesn't belong to us, or there's a subdivision required, or there's extensive maintenance issues. So the Reg 17 report highlighted there was a need to move a little bit more quickly on this process, and that there will be new regulations as part of the local government reforms that require us to publicly display lease arrangements, so that the public knows what sort of contractual arrangements the Shire is in with community groups or otherwise. And so we are trying to get through them more quickly, but as council's aware, sometimes negotiating these arrangements with long-standing community organisations takes years, not months. So it is a challenge that we continue to work on.
Councillor Bronwyn?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the procurement officer in relation to that. And at the moment we have a system where procurement is conducted by whichever department is there. There's no procurement officer over the top of all of that. And I know that in engineering principles they always have someone in charge. The reason for that is we all think that someone's doing something when they're not. So how do we manage that to ensure that, regardless, I understand the ability is more flexible the way you've got it set out. How do we make sure someone's responsible for ensuring that everyone else is conducting business as they should?
Sure. So through the chair, we do now have a single procurement resource in the governance and strategy team, which oversees the procurement functions between 50,000 and the upper limit. So they assist officers with writing our tenders, our RFQs beyond 50,000. We've been working on, as is stated in this report, multiple areas to improve compliance, and that procurement officer has sort of started with the riskiest end of the business and is working back. But there are a lot of other controls in place which are in the finance department's area, and those purchases and things are audited regularly as part of the interim financial audits. So Sue might be able to talk to that a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, like for example, for all procurements or all payments which Shire of Harvey does, before any payment is released, there is a compliance check done by Manager of Finance, and an audit trail is checked by a senior finance officer. So we make sure that on any payment which is released is as per the compliance with the purchasing policy of the Shire.
Okay, so we've got that check in place.
Yes.
So I just read the report and I thought, well, they're suggesting something else. Okay, thank you.
Okay, councillors, are there any further questions for staff? Okay, we've got an officer's recommendation that council receives the Shire of Harvey Audit Regulation 17 Quarterly Report, Quarter 1, 2023 to 2024, as outlined in this report. Do I have a mover? Councillor Hitchcock, a seconder. Councillor Coleman, all those in favour, show of hands. Carried. Thank you. All right, we will move on. Get used to my little finger here. So, item 9.2, which is the Strategic Risk Quarterly Report, Quarter 1, 2023 to 2024. Over to you, Courtney, just to talk us through this one, please.
Thank you, and through the chair, the risk management at the Shire of Harvey, the framework, we committed to bringing our risks to council, our strategic risk to council every quarter. So through that workshopping, we developed 27 strategic risks, and they're put into a register where councillors can see the actions against those strategic risks reported quarterly. Generally, where something is of an extreme risk tolerance level, it exceeds the tolerance level of the organisation and generally requires action from the audit committee. You'll note in this report there are 2 items which we discuss in the comment section of the report, S21 and S25, which we currently have rated as extreme or high risk exceeding the administration's tolerance, but both are currently being actively worked on and at this time don't require further input from the audit committee or further resources, but we thought it's still pertinent to flag those with the audit committee. So for now, just noting the report as attached in attachment 1.
Okay, thanks, Courtney. Councillor Bromham, question?
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, Courtney, thanks for that. That's I was looking exactly at that at this moment. I'm looking at S25, and I just wondered how you're doing your risk assessment, because if you look at it there, we've got a risk rating which is extreme, a control rating which is extreme, and then a residual risk rating which is extreme as well. Where normally, if you've got some mitigation in place, that would lower to some extent. Is there a reason why that's not the case?
I think timing, through the chair, timing is probably the case at the moment. We hadn't been able to implement anything to reduce the residual risk at the time of writing the report, but the, need for additional resources is not quite there. So it really is a timing thing. I think once we've started implementing some of the mitigations, the residual risk will come down, but at the time of the report that wasn't the case.
Councillor Bromham, did you have another question?
I was just going to ask whether we would be given supplementary information as soon as those things start around we've reduced that risk.
Through the chair, so I guess I can provide a little bit of a comment that might make you feel more comfortable. So we do have a safety and wellbeing coordinator who has developed a high-level plan to tackle some of these issues, and he's meeting with the executive leadership team every 2 weeks to go over the progress on those actions. I suppose by the next audit committee, I would expect that most of those actions have been dealt with, but would suggest to speak to the CEO if you're concerned before the quarter.
Councillor Holly?
Thank you, Madam President. I was just wondering, and it's one of those questions, the 27, the total number of 27, where does that come from? Like that actual number?
Sure, and through the chair. So 27 is the number of strategic objectives that are listed in the strategic community plan. So each one of our risks corresponds directly with one of the objectives that the council are trying to strategically achieve. So it's really just a way that we found we could structure the way we report on strategic risk to council.
Thank you.
Councillor Bromham?
Yeah, could we just note then that, President, that should something go awry in here, that we bring it to the Audit Committee before the next meeting?
Any other questions, councillors? I'm just interested in S21 in regards to the Brunswick pool. So, and I know the history of the Brunswick pool. Councillor Dickinson's probably been thrown in the Brunswick pool many years ago, myself. Apparently I was thrown in there as a child. just how the flow-on effect of this with the other, development areas that have got open water space near playgrounds and the like. So how are we dealing with that as a result of this inspection of the pool? My second question is the art infrastructure element as well.
Sure, and through the chair. So when we brought this report to ELT, the biggest consideration for ELT was to consider whether it was a pool or not. And thank you to Councillor Coleman for bringing it to our attention as a liability issue a number of months ago. This was the result of that issue being raised, that we conducted a risk assessment with LJS, who are our insurers for the new councillors that are here. So once we met with ELT, ELT more or less agreed that the community and the Shire do view this area as a swimming pool of sorts, and it's probably encouraged in that way. A number of our advertisements state that it is a pool. So once that was decided, that's when these mitigations really come into play, whereas a waterway that isn't treated as a pool for recreation purposes is not treated in the same way. So a lake with ducks on it or that sort of thing isn't somewhere that you actively encourage people to swim, and so the same level of risk treatment doesn't necessarily apply. So if we had something come up where a member of the public raised an area of concern with the safety of a water body, we would follow the same process more than likely and work with someone like LJS to come up with an analysis of the risk.
And will can council expect a report coming to the council in regards to the unbudgeted funds that may be required?
Yes, through the chair. I believe the Director of Infrastructure, who's not here today, was working on a report for some fencing and was obtaining quotes. And then the smaller things, as mentioned, like the life buoy, the depth markers, I believe will come out of the existing budget.
Councillors, are there any further questions? Councillor Bromham?
Yeah, that was a really interesting report. And I just wondered, in relation to that, have we reached out maybe to Pemberton, who have a very similar situation with a pool down there? I've been down there, they've got it fenced off and there's some other things they've done. I imagine there would be some type of stuff we could utilise quite easily from that location. I just wondered if we've done that.
Through the chair, I haven't. However, Pemberton is in the same mutual insurance fund as ourselves, so it's very likely that LJS would have used data from an area like that in considering this report, but I can touch base with Ian and David from LJS and see if that was considered in this assessment.
Shire of Manjimup, I think, actually is Pemberton.
Councillor Holly?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Do we pay full total odds on the insurance for the whole year if we've got the river flowing and it's not a pool? What happens there?
Through the chair. So our public liability comes out of a mutual bucket, and we register our public liability interests with our insurer only once a year. So it would be for the whole year, and it would be very unlikely that they would credit us any portion for not using it.
Okay, are there any further questions, councillors? Okay, we've got officers' recommendations. Councillor Bromham.
Yeah, I guess the only question I have is the timeline, because when in the report it talks about young children in the caravan park and its proximity to both the railway line and the water's edge. And I just wondered, sort of what are we looking at in relation to the timeline to get something in place to protect young kids from harm?
Through the chair, I believe that the Director of Infrastructure was working on that quite quickly and would have something before the end of the year. And I believe the comment for unbudgeted funds would mean that the works would be done prior to the next budget or in time for the mid-year budget review if necessary.
Yeah. I was just concerned that it's getting quite there'll be a lot of kids there trying to get that.
Okay, noted. Okay, last opportunity. Any further questions on this item? If not, officer's recommendation that council receives the strategic risk quarterly report, Q1 2023-24 is attached as attachment 1. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Bronwyn, the second, Councillor Crispin. There we go. Sorry, Crispin.
Half Dickinson.
Yeah, there we go. All those in favour, show of hands, please. Carried. Thank you. Rightio. What have we got? Is that it?
That's it.
Nothing behind closed doors? That's it. Thank you very much, councillors. I declare the meeting closed at 2:40-ish.
2:21.
2:21. There you go.